There we go. What I want to start with today is a background on what shadow work is so that you have a really full understanding of the practice and why it's important to do shadow work. And then we're going to get into the specifics of how to actually do shadow work in your everyday life. So for those of you guys who are totally new to my world, I'm Danielle Massey. I'm a licensed psychotherapist by trade, but I stopped doing therapy a couple of years ago because shadow work is just much more powerful. So it's something that I've really enjoyed switching over to, because things that used to take my therapy clients, say 5 years, 6 years, 7 years to get through, or maybe they wouldn't even get through it at all. It's now something that they can get through like that very quickly. With shadow work, we can get to the root of issues in almost no time. So let's go through the basics of what shadow work is. If you guys want, you can grab a piece of paper and a pen. I know it's complex. If you have questions, just somewhere to jot down ideas, because things might come up as we go through this talk too. So just having that handy. And then you'll need it again for a meditation, because when you come out of it, you should have a lot of things that came up and came through for you. So the background on shadow work. So what is it? How many of you guys, before doing this masterclass, have heard of shadow work before? You can either just raise your hand or just let me know in the comments. Okay, most of you guys have heard about it before, so that's really good. So basically, the reason why I asked that question is because I see on social media all the time that people talk about shadow work, but when they do, they're not getting the full breadth of what it is for one reason in particular. Shadow work is often defined by people who don't understand it as a way to access the subconscious mind, but that's not true. True shadow work accesses a layer below that, the unconscious mind. Shadow work was defined in 1863 by Carl Jung, who is a psychoanalyst and one of Freud's proteges. And he had discovered through his work and his research that there is a part of ourselves that we repress. There's something within every single one of us that wants to bury stuff down and push it away and hide it, even from ourselves, to the point where we don't realize it's there. That's the unconscious piece. So there's 3 levels to all of our cognitive capabilities. There's the conscious mind. It's the things you already know. You fully are aware that you're sitting here with me today, whether it's live or on the replay. You know what to eat for breakfast this morning. You know what it is that you're doing tonight. Those are all conscious things. Then we have the subconscious, which is a layer just below that. This is the area where people get tripped up. The subconscious is below your everyday awareness, but it is accessible. So this is the stuff like your automatic behaviors and habits. If you were to take a few minutes every single day and just think about your thoughts or think about your behaviors, what you would find is all the stuff that's hidden within the subconscious mind. So you might realize that every morning you wake up and you scroll through your phone before you do anything without thinking. Just automatically, you're kind of pushing through, and then you get up and go and brush your teeth. And that's a subconscious behavior. These are the easiest ones to work with to create quick change. But the problem with the subconscious is you're not actually getting to the root of why that's happening in the first place. Like, why is it that every morning you wake up and reach for your phone and start to scroll? There's a layer deeper than that. That's the unconscious mind. And the unconscious is all the stuff that is hidden away. And it's hidden for a variety of reasons. The first one is that sometimes there's just not enough space cognitively, like your brain doesn't want to hold things. So it's like, we don't really need that. Let's throw it away. Let's put it into the unconscious mind. Another reason is because your brain might deem it irrelevant. Like, if it doesn't reinforce what you already know and believe, you're just going to put it in the unconscious because it's like a junk closet, essentially. But the reason that matters for us and the reason why we're here doing shadow work is that a lot of the stuff that gets put into the unconscious mind is trauma. It's the heavy stuff. It's the stuff that terrified you when it happened. And so much so that your brain and your body kind of got frazzled, like your wires got crossed. And when this happens, your brain and your body don't really know how to respond cohesively. And that pushes information into the unconscious mind. So when stuff ends up in the unconscious, it's not gone. It's just hidden. It really is like a junk closet. And the problem with that is that there's only so much stuff that can fit within there before we start to see some really icky things happening physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. Imagine that you're just constantly putting stuff into this junk closet. Like the moment that your second grade best friend told you she didn't want to be your friend anymore, or the moment when your grandmother told you you were getting fat, Or maybe it's the moment where your first soccer coach told you that you had to sit on the bench because you just weren't as good as the other players. It can be really big stuff too. It can be a reaction to a diagnosis. Like maybe you were diagnosed with bipolar at 18 years old, and it's like you don't even remember that day. It could be the loss of a parent. Like you don't remember the moments after hearing the news. Whether it's big or it's small, it still can be trauma. It's just a different kind of trauma. There's two types. There's big T traumas. These are the ones that we usually associate with trauma, where it's like something horrific that anybody would look at it and go, obviously, that's traumatic. But little T traumas tend to make up more of our unconscious space. And little T traumas are the things that impact you that aren't necessarily going to impact the other people in a way that would be deemed traumatic. How we see this showing up in our everyday life is our triggers. So you might notice that something bothers you and it doesn't bother the people around you. Like if I was out to lunch with people and I noticed something happening or I heard someone talking about a specific situation, I might start to feel a bodily reaction with my heartbeat getting faster, my breath getting more shallow. I might feel myself tensing up, my shoulders creeping up towards my ears, but no one else would be responding the same way. The reason that happens is because it's only traumatic for me, because it's triggering a memory from my childhood or from a past life or another point in my life that nobody else has a similar background on. Nobody else has the same issue. Those are usually our little T traumas. And there's thousands of them that are hidden within your unconscious. You don't even realize they're there. In fact, sometimes the brain is more likely to hide little T traumas than big T traumas. So if you were to say, walk in and realize that your grandmother's not breathing anymore, and no one expected her to pass away, and there you are with her trying to breathe her back to life and you're freaking out, you might actually remember that more clearly than being 3 years old and having someone push you down a small staircase. Both are traumatic in different ways, but there's different reasons why one might stay within your conscious mind and other ones won't. One of the big reasons is age. So the older you get, the more likely you are to hold on to the memory. So those inner child things that happen to us when we're young flood our unconscious mind. And then also if it's a past life thing, which is a huge piece of the work that I do. So all those things are just hidden, repressed, buried out of the way. But our brains are still acting as if they're fresh. Our brains don't stop acting like that, and neither does our body. I'm sure you guys have heard that your body holds your trauma, your issues are in your tissues. Insert any cute little analogy here. It's common for us to talk about those because it's true, right? Our trauma and all the heaviness that we have in our lives, it gets stuck in the body and we can feel those reactions, but it's still in your mind. You just don't realize that it is. The way that this happens is what's called a subconscious feedback loop. And this is how our brain stores all of our memories. So what happens is every experience that you have kickstarts a chain reaction within the brain and the body. So let's say you walk into that lunch with your friends that we were just talking about a couple minutes ago, and you sit down, you start hearing someone retell a conversation that they had with their mother, and it starts to trigger you. The experience, all the sensory stuff. So the hearing the story, the feeling of sitting there in that chair, the smell of waffles, because you guys are at a brunch place, the taste of a mimosa, like all the things are all being looped up and input into the brain. And the brain has to sort through it. So it's taking multiple pieces. So maybe the trigger is that your mom and dad had a huge fight when you were young, and you got blamed for it, even though it had nothing to do with you. And it was at a time when you were 5 years old and you were eating waffles and drinking orange juice. Too many of the factors are similar. And so now that kickstarts an emotional response for you. And the emotions that you start to feel are things like panic, shame, guilt, fear, anger, all these different emotions coming up within the brain. Emotions are just chemicals. That's all they are. And they're messenger chemicals. So these continue the chain reaction, sending information down your spine into the body. And what they're sending is encoded information about how to respond. Do we need to pick up the heart rate? Do we need to decrease it? Do we need to send certain hormones? Do we not? So this information gets sent down and it starts a chain reaction of fight or flight in this case, where the heart starts to race. We got sweaty palms. We start to have that shallow breath. Your brain might start getting a little bit foggy. Noticeably around you, people might see that something is going on with you, and somebody might nudge you and go, what's wrong, right? What happens then is this loop needs to close itself out. So the gut, believe it or not, is where most of our thoughts come from. So the gut, the enteric nervous system, sends information back into the brain about what you should think in this moment. If it's an unconscious memory, you don't remember that time when you were 5, you're confused. You don't really know why you're freaking out. So you might think maybe I had too much to drink, or like maybe that fight that I had with my boyfriend is still on my mind, or like whatever it is. Your brain isn't going to tell you, hey, let's just open up that unconscious thing that happened to you years ago. It's just going to feel like a blank, and your thoughts are going to be confusion, anger, frustration. And when that happens, that closes off the loop. That every time now that you're in a situation where you hear someone telling a story and there's certain foods or drinks or smells or sounds involved, you assume your body prepares for it to be a traumatic reaction. And this is how we find people getting into situations where they don't want to be around people. They feel stuck in their job. They don't feel comfortable around their family members. They can't feel free to be who they are. I know I just threw a lot at you guys. So like I said before, questions, put them in the chat, knock yourself out. But this is like the most basic principles of why shadow work is important, because shadow is analogous for the unconscious mind. Shadow equals unconscious. They're one and the same. When Carl Jung came up with the phrase, he literally just substituted it out. So every time he would have said unconscious mind, he said shadow, or he would say shadow materials, which are the things that exist within the unconscious mind. And the reason why this is important is because shadow does not have to stay in the shadows. Shadow shouldn't stay in the shadows. In fact, that proverbial junk closet we were talking about before, when it starts to fill up and overflow, when you have so much heaviness hanging out in there, the little moments from your childhood, the heaviness from ex relationships, the bad conversations you've had with your parents as an adult, or past life stuff, or even generational trauma, which does get passed down through your DNA, all of this information exists within that junk closet. And eventually it's going to get to the point where you can't even close the door anymore. It's going to overflow. There's no way it won't. And that's when we start to see some physical ailments coming up. So people who have any kind of predisposition towards things like autoimmune issues, like thyroid. For me, it was cancer. I had cervical cancer, lupus, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis can come up in any of those ways. Could come up as other things too, like hormone imbalances, can come up as mental illness, things like bipolar disorder, personality disorders, anxiety, depression, you name it. And it probably comes back to this. And the research that's out there shows that the majority of the physical ailments that we have and the mental ailments that we have are the result of unconscious bullshit that we are just repressing. Repression is the enemy. Shadow work is the process of taking all the stuff that we're repressing and very slowly, carefully, and consciously pulling it up and dealing with it, and pulling it up and dealing with it. And the way that we want to deal with it is to actually change that subconscious feedback loop that we were talking about before. We want to interrupt it. We want to change the experiences, all the sensory stuff. We want to change the reaction that it has emotionally within your body, the chemicals that get emitted. We want to change how it responds with the physical body. So the physiological response, the heart rate, the breathing, the sweating, all that stuff, the brain fog. And then we want to change your thoughts. And if we can interrupt those through the process of reliving them, we can change how this stuff exists in the brain. Yep, fibromyalgia is a huge one. I remember when I was a student going to school for psychotherapy and for cognitive neuroscience, fibromyalgia was a hot conversation at the time because the science is showing that they couldn't figure out why it happens. When we do MRI scans of people who have fibromyalgia, there's no difference between them and anybody else. There's no indicator. It's not like there's something specific we can see on the brain, like METs or things like that, like we would see in MS. There's nothing there. And yet the symptoms are so real. Pain levels are off the charts. And so it befuddles a lot of people. Like, why is this happening? It doesn't make any sense. We don't see physical issues. We don't see any neurological issues. And it's because it's not something tangible. It's unconscious. And in fact, people who do shadow work tend to have a huge relief in fibromyalgia symptoms, if not having it clear altogether. My mother-in-law being one of those people. It's crazy that this isn't something that we're all mandated to do, right? I feel like everybody should have a therapist and everybody should do shadow work. I'm biased because I did both of those things, but the reason being is because it can be so transformative. I know it was for me. It changed everything, and it's changed the hundreds of people that I've worked with too on my group program and the thousands of people I've worked with outside of the group program. So the important thing to understand about the process of how we do shadow work is that we want to get you to a state where you can access the unconscious mind, because we can all get there. It's easier than you think. We have this junk closet that's in our brains. Everybody's got one. And all you have to do is know how to open the door slowly and pull out what you need. The problem at first is if you were to open that junk closet by yourself, everything's tumbling out. Like, oh, thank God she's here. Like, we just need to throw all this stuff at her. Whew. And that becomes obviously overwhelming and even traumatic in itself, because you're re-traumatizing yourself as you go through it. Which is why I always recommend working with someone at first, myself included. When I started doing shadow work, I had someone that I worked with for months before I started doing it on my own. Because once you've cleared out most of the stuff, then you can easily go in and pull out what you need very slowly. Chaos is shadow work, something you need to do continually. Yeah, it is. But the difference is that at first you do it a lot, and then you can slowly wean off until you're not really doing it very much at all. Like now, if I do shadow work once a month, twice a month, that's a lot for me. So at first I was doing it once or twice a week. There was a point where I was even doing it a little bit more than that, because it's like, finally you're opening this stuff up. But once you have that junk closet, like neatly organized, and you pulled out the big heavy stuff, all you have left is like neatly sorted boxes and easy things that are not that big of a deal. So even if you were to go back in, it's not going to be life-changing or life-altering if it doesn't go exactly how you plan. So the goal for us with shadow work is we want to get the big stuff. We want to pull that stuff out of there and deal with it and change how it lives within your brain, your body, your energy, and your emotions, the 4 bodies of your aura. And that's how we change you. So with this, with the unconscious stuff, we want to get you guys to a point where you're in theta brainwave state. This is a very specific brainwave pattern. And you guys go into this brainwave state every single day as you're falling asleep. So if you ever notice as you're drifting off to sleep, there's like that point just between being awake and falling asleep, where like if you had to get up to answer the phone or to like pee, like it's not a big deal. Like you're tired and you're like, oh, I gotta start that all over. But it really isn't that big of a deal. You're still consciously awake, but you're like drifting off. That's a theta brainwave state. And what it looks like, a regular brainwave state that we're in kind of looks like this: tightly coiled, highs and lows. A theta brainwave state is loose, really, really long. It's almost as if you took that and you just pulled it out. Not so pulled out that it's like you're not conscious at all and you're completely like asleep, a step before that. The reason why that's important for me to point out is because a lot of people think you can only access the unconscious through hypnotherapy. And I actually shy against that. Reason being is that if you're hypnotized, you don't know what's happening. So maybe you have someone who's recording it for you, maybe you don't, but you're not fully consciously aware of what's happening. So the person who's doing it could do whatever while you're in that state. You wouldn't even realize. Plus, if you don't have control over your body, as someone who's gone through trauma, that in itself can be re-traumatizing. You can create new unconscious shadow stuff for yourself if that doesn't go well. Andrea said it becomes easier to do. Shadow work becomes easier. Andrea's done 3 of my programs, so she knows. And you sort of acknowledge things of impact as they come in your day-to-day, at least for me. It's true. That's kind of how I feel now. Like as things are happening, I can kind of see the experience. It almost feels like I don't know if you guys have ever watched any of the Marvel movies, but Tony Stark always had those like cool, complex, like 3D things that are right in front of him, where it's like he can like pick and move things around. I literally feel about that with everything now. Like if a situation comes up with someone, it's like it's not happening inside of me anymore. It's almost happening in front of me. I'm like, oh no, that's not the way to do it. I'm going to pick and move that over here. I'm going to change this around. It doesn't feel heavy or hard at all. Megan, who's another one of my shadow work students, said it was life-changing for her. I love you guys. That's the thing that I love about shadow work too, is I feel like we create this really strong community because you're doing it with other people. So it's like, we just have this bond that nobody else will understand until they do it, which is cool. But back to the shadow work stuff, back to the goodies. So we want to meditate until we get to theta brainwave state. So we want to just get to that point where it's like you're so relaxed and so calm. And when you're there and you're that relaxed and you're that calm, we can open up that unconscious mind and we can pull stuff out really slowly and we can deal with it. And what'll happen is you do shadow work through meditation, which is what we've done the past 2 days with my other 2 students who are now coaches in my program, is that we're using guided meditation to access things. Once you're guided to the point where you're supposed to see something, the images will show up in your head. And it's kind of like it's happening behind your eyes. It's not like you're seeing it directly in front of you, if that makes sense. It's like it's happening here. So the way that I like to liken this to is like if I told every single one of you right now to imagine in your head an apple with your eyes open, just imagine an apple in your head. Can you see it? It's like not that hard, right? You can see the red. Maybe it's like one of those that's like off color, like a gala apple. Maybe there's a leaf on it, maybe there's not, but you can see it in your mind. That's how shadow work works. You'll have those images pop into your head where all of a sudden you're like standing on grass in a field and right in front of you is a gigantic tree. But at the base of the tree is a stone and you go over to it and there's something inscribed on it. And it's like underneath this is something buried. Anyways, it takes you through it. So you actually get to access the things that are in your unconscious mind. Because once we open that door, it's going to come directly into your head. So you'll see it clearly. And when you get better at it with practice, the more you allow your body to relax and go there, the more crisp those images become. And sometimes it's even like an audio thing too, where you start to hear, or maybe you just know. A lot of people, it starts that way where it's like, you just know that you're standing on pine needles in the woods. It's like, that's oddly specific. Why would I just think that? There's a reason. And if you let yourself, you start to see it. I want to answer Rachel's question. So, you know how I was talking before about like, it's almost like things are happening outside of me and I can move them around. There's a term, dissociation, that we talk about within a therapy context. Dissociation is where your brain is in, or I'm sorry, your body is in such a state of fight or flight that it's like things are happening to you, but you're frozen. So it's like it's happening outside of you, but your whole body is just numb. This is different because this is coming from a place of complete ease and relaxation. It's the parasympathetic versus the sympathetic nervous system. So you're so relaxed and so calm that you can just see things very clearly. When I was a therapist, I would have people come to me all the time for a variety of reasons. Like couples would come for infidelity, people would come to make their life better, career changes, wanting to understand themselves, getting through mental illness, and so on and so forth. And one of the things I would tell them after we'd be working together for a long time is everybody always points out in therapy, like, why is it that the answers are so easy for you to see and not for me? And I would tell them it would be the same thing if I was coming to you, because when it's you in therapy, you are in it. Like you can't see it from an outsider's perspective. So it's like, if it were a painting, it's like, you're like this. You don't have a good vantage point. You can't see anything because you're in it every day. But me as the therapist, I can see it from here. And from this angle, it's pretty clear. It's very obvious. But if you could learn to do that for yourself, which is the goal of shadow work, to just zoom out and see it from that full 360-degree angle where every piece of it is available to you, and it comes from a place of peace and calm, that's the good stuff. That's money. That's how we know you're in a space where you're exactly where you need to be. And that's the goal of shadow work. not dissociation, but differentiation. That's the term. And I'll put that in the chat. Differentiation is the ability to see things very clearly from not a detached place, but a place where it's like your emotions aren't running off because it's triggering a trauma. Your body should feel calm when you make decisions. Your body should feel calm when you do things. So again, let me know if you guys have more questions. I know we're kind of plowing through. And this is it's a deep subject, right? So let's just keep climbing in. So like I said before, when we see shadow, what we're doing is we're meditating to the point where you can access it. And then we're using all of your senses because we want to interrupt that subconscious feedback loop that we were talking about before. If you'll remember that situation at brunch that I was talking about earlier, it's like all the sensory pieces, like feeling the chair that you're sitting in, the smell of the waffles, the taste of the orange juice, the noise of the conversation, all the different senses are coming in. So when we do shadow work, we want to get you to that theta brainwave state, and then we want to invite in all the senses of what it was that you experienced before. So when you went through that trauma when you were 4 years old, what did you hear? What did you smell? What did you see? All those different senses are going to trigger the opening of that subconscious feedback loop. If you can feel all those things and you can recall the emotions, whether it was fear, anger, frustration, sadness, and you start to feel them. And then that sends a message to the body to create a reaction and a thought. What we want to do is we want to start to interrupt immediately during the shadow work session. So if you guys ever do shadow work with me, you'll hear me say this 1,000 times, but your breath is medicine. We'll start to breathe slower. Bringing you back to your breath slows down that autonomic nervous system response, which slows the production of some of those chemicals we were talking about, like adrenaline and cortisol. It slows down the ability for you to get lost in the senses and to create new ones. Like maybe you'll start to ground in that moment where it's like for the first time you feel your feet underneath you. Maybe you start to feel relaxed as you go through it. And when that happens, your thoughts change. So one of the examples I love to give is from one of my first shadow work sessions I ever did with somebody else. And she saw herself at the top of the stairs when she was 3 years old. She'd climbed out of her little toddler bed and went to go downstairs. It probably was when she first ended up like out of the crib, because I don't know if you guys have kids. I do. It's like they always test the boundaries every time you give them a little bit of freedom. So the second they're in a toddler bed, it's like, I need to come to mommy. Let's see what's going on. So this little girl, this 3-year-old version of her, she saw herself in that body. She felt herself walk out of the toddler bed, reach up on her tippy toes and open the door, get to the top of the stairs. And that's when she started to hear the fighting downstairs in like really intense, whispery yelling because they didn't want to wake the baby up. Her parents were fighting. And as a 3-year-old, she couldn't understand what they were talking about. She didn't hear the words. She didn't understand the words. But as an adult, we're experiencing this. What we were able to do is slow her down at that moment, work on the breathing, ground her little feet into the top of the stairs where she could feel the carpet that she was on. We actually had her start to listen. And what she heard very clearly was her parents fighting about the fact that they owed rent to their, I think it was the brother that was living upstairs because they were living in the basement, and that the brother was thinking about throwing them out. And so she could hear this conversation. And she knows now as an adult that ended up fine. They ended up moving out of that situation, but into a better one, a more loving space, somewhere with less tension and less heartache. But as a 3-year-old, all she heard was mommy and daddy fighting, and I'm in bed, so it must be about me. Because before the age of 7, kids are very egocentric. They don't understand that sometimes things happen and it has nothing to do with them. That situation still, it's like I feel it in my throat. It was awful for her to go through at the time. But when she moved through it, it was over. That's something that happens for me too. For all of you guys who've worked with me before, you know that when something happens where it's like someone goes through an experience, I feel it in my chakras. So I'll recall how it feels in my throat. I'll get brain fog with you. I'll feel it in my hands. And for her, it was the throat chakra block. It was the feeling of unworthiness, like she couldn't speak up for herself. So that was a huge, huge switch for her once we were able to interrupt that subconscious feedback loop and release it. Because now as an adult, things that would have triggered her before, like hearing people fighting or just being around her parents, being awake at nighttime, these triggers, these really subtle triggers that would send her into a spiral and make her feel stuck in her body or money. They stopped bothering her. It went away. So let me answer some of these questions that came up because there's a couple here. Rachel said, I have dissociation on the very large spectrum. I was worried it was going to be overwhelming like that. Thank you. You're welcome. Brandy said, the closet has always been the place I put everything I did not have time to address or wanted to. I put everything in there until one day the door burst open and everything came pouring out. I found Danielle and began my journey of shadow work, and my life is forever changed. You guys, I love you, Brandy. You guys are so, so sweet. As I'm like still dying over here. And so one bad thing about feeling things kinesthetically, in fact, we can actually talk about that too. Now that that's kind of happening for me, I can share this. When you start your spiritual journey, because that is what shadow work is, there's so much science behind it. And that's what we've been talking about this whole time, is the science. But there is spiritual stuff going on. We utilize chakra systems, so the energy that lives within your body. We utilize your connection to your spirit guides and let them help guide you through these moments so that you can find exactly what it is that you need to find. And we use them to help you stay safe too in this process. As you're going through all that stuff and you're moving through these different things, you're going to experience a spiritual awakening. So your connection is going to get strong. You're going to start to feel things in your body in ways you never imagined. So what I want to do now is I want to do a shadow work meditation with all of you guys. So take 2 minutes if you have to pee, if you need a journal, if you want to grab some candles, like any of the goodies, this is your moment. And we'll come back here, let's say in 3 minutes at 2:40 p.m. EST. So go ahead and grab your stuff and then come back. All right, it looks like you guys are coming back. So just for anybody who wasn't on, because I paused it there for a second. So for the people watching the replay, we're going to go into a meditation. So things like candles, oils, crystals, getting into a nice cozy space, somewhere really comfortable. You can grab a blanket, a pillow, any of the goodies, and just get cozy. Because what we're going to do is we're going to get you into that place where you access those theta brainwaves. And so you can see whatever it is that needs to come up today with so much clarity. Perfect. And if you're watching this live and you're at work, don't worry. You can always come back and do this meditation at a later date. No big deal. All right. Any last questions before we go in? I thought you were trying to type dissociation. So let me read that again. Because I have dissociation on the very large spectrum, I was worried it was going to be overwhelming like that. Dissociation is a super common trauma response. And when we have a lot of dissociation, it's really indicative of so much trauma that's existing within the body. So shadow work is really important for that. I'm one of those people. I've had multiple sexual traumas and cervical cancer and a lot of childhood traumas that were like those little T traumas. And what happened for me is that it felt almost like my soul was out of my body, especially in moments where I was getting triggered, where it was like it was happening, but I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. From a spiritual perspective, it is your soul leaving your body. Like your soul exits so that your body can take the beating of whatever it is that's going on. And when it's over, your soul drops back in. It's a protective mechanism. And it's weird to think about it like that, but it's true. So on some fronts, it's kind of a good thing because it is protective. When it happens, at least, like if you have a sexual trauma like I did, your soul leaving your body and then coming back afterwards is meant to just really keep you safe. But like I told you before, your body doesn't forget trauma. It still holds it. It just keeps it so that you're not at that breaking point all the time. It's not like you're ready to jump off a cliff on a regular basis. It's meant to keep you alive, but not happy. We really want you to be in your body, your soul to be firmly planted in here, grounded and connected and fully rooted in. Okay. So if you guys are ready, I want to jump into a deep shadow work meditation. So get yourself comfy, lying down, sitting up, whatever works best for you. If you have a blanket, something to make you feel really cozy and warm, grab it, wrap it up on yourself. The most important thing here is to make sure that nothing's going to pull your attention away. So if you need to lock the door to the room that you're in so nobody bursts in on you, silence your cell phones, take off your smartwatch so nobody can text you and annoy you, all those goodies. If you have glasses, take those off because those will pull your attention. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get in. Just take a seat, close your eyes, and then start to take some really deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe, I want you to focus your attention on filling your belly with air. Really filling up that belly, not your chest. Fill that belly up with air and release it through the mouth, letting all that heaviness go. As you breathe, I want you to imagine yourself very quickly on a beach. I want you to hear the sound of seagulls flying over you, the waves crashing gently on the sand very easily. I want you to feel the sand underneath you. Feel yourself squishing into it, the warmth of that sand. And as you breathe, I want you to imagine that you're breathing in salty beach air. Take a deep breath in. And as that salt air makes its way in through your nose, I want you to picture it. See that salty air making its way in through your nose and down the back of your palate, your throat. I want you to see that salt air as it makes its way through your body, down into your lungs, making its way out to all of your extremities. Taking another deep breath in. And with this breath, feeling that salt air reaching every part of your physical body. Letting the salt cleanse and clear you. Letting it remove anything negative that exists within your physical being. I want you to feel your whole body relaxing as you let your hands drop down by your sides if they're not already there. I want you to let your spine be straight with each chakra stacked on top of the others. Taking another deep breath of that salty air in and breathing out. As you feel yourself on this beach, I want you to bring all of your attention to the very top of your head at your crown. And I want you to visualize a small wheel at this location, not moving, just stagnant there. And when you see that wheel, I want you to know that that is your crown chakra. And this crown chakra is meant to be spinning. And so with your next breath, I want you to will it to begin to spin. It'll begin to spin very slowly at first, as any heavy, stuck, or stagnant energy that exists within your crown begins to move. Feel it almost like sludge holding back the wheel, but the wheel spins anyway, pushing that heaviness back, pushing it out into the sides, letting that wheel spin a little bit faster. As it continues to spin, this crown chakra that's responsible for your connection to spirit and to the divine for knowledge and wisdom, the wheel gets faster and faster. And you can see it spinning and rotating very clearly. When it's moving fast, leave that crown chakra wheel where it is and take your attention down to your third eye. And as you focus just between your eyebrows at the third eye position, imagine a second wheel at this location. And I want you to see that wheel beginning to spin very slowly at first. Slowly pushing any of that sludge or heaviness, any of that stuck and stagnant energy from this location. Feeling it get pushed out of the way. Maybe even feeling the pressure in your third eye, just between your eyebrows, as the wheel gets a little bit faster and a little bit faster. Allowing it to pick up speed as this location, responsible for your ability to see things, truly see, clear sight, clairvoyance, allowing it to get a little bit faster until it reaches its peak speed. And then I want you to take your attention down to your throat. As you focus in on that throat chakra, I want you to see a third wheel, just like the two before it, allowing it to begin to spin slowly. Spinning through all the heavy energy, the stuck and stagnant moments that you need to release. The moments where you were unable to use your voice. The moments where you felt like you didn't have a voice. Feeling them get pushed as the wheel spins faster and faster. Clearing that energy out of this throat chakra. Spinning faster until it reaches its top speed. Then allowing yourself to take your attention down to your heart chakra. And as you focus in on the heart, rolling your shoulders back to just open up the chest. Taking a deep breath in as you feel the fourth wheel at this location. As you breathe in that salty air on this beach, see that fourth wheel begin to spin. Just like all those before it, the spinning begins slowly. As the heaviness that you've experienced in your life and other lives that you've lived, the loss, the heartbreak, the sadness, the heaviness that you carry around within this space, it all begins to release. Breathing in and out as you feel that wheel getting faster and faster. Until it finally reaches its peak speed as it's released everything that needs to move out of that space. Then you can take your attention down to your solar plexus, which is just in the middle of your abdomen, right at the point where your ribs meet the rest of your torso. Visualizing another wheel here. Letting yourself breathe in that salt air as you see that wheel beginning its spinning. Very slowly at first. Slowly moving as if it's moving through sludge. This area that's responsible for creativity, for power and decision making. Feeling it move anything that's blocking those capabilities as you breathe in and out, willing that wheel to go faster. Releasing the stuck energy out through your exhales. Letting it all go. As you breathe in again, seeing that it finally reaches its top speed as this area is clear, just as all the other ones before. And then you take your attention down once more to the sacral chakra, your womb space, just behind your navel. As you focus on this area, visualizing a sixth wheel at this location, seeing that wheel just behind your navel beginning to spin, letting it spin slowly at first, as any heaviness that connects to your navel center, any trauma that you might have experienced through your womb, any moments that you need to release, feeling them in the navel center as that wheel spins faster and faster, until that wheel reaches its top speed. And then you can take your attention down to your roots, the very base of your spine. And as you breathe into that root chakra, visualizing a wheel at that location, seeing it spin slowly at first. Anything that's made you feel like you can't be grounded, like your energy is stuck, or like you're unsafe. As you breathe, feeling it get released as the wheel spins faster and faster. If you're experiencing visceral reactions as you go through this, trust that these releases are things that you've needed. This clearing is right on time. Trust that you're safe. And that whatever it is that we see today is something that you've been needing. As that wheel reaches its top capacity, and all 7 of these wheels are spinning together in perfect harmony, bring yourself back to your breath as you breathe in that salty air on this beach, letting it come back into your lungs again, but noticing how much more clear it is. With all the energy that was stuck within your body released, your breath can find its way so much easier. So breathe. Full deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you visualize yourself on this beach, very slowly, you notice the sand beneath you begin to suck you in. Trust it. Trust the feeling, almost like Mother Earth is welcoming you in. Breathe as you feel yourself getting pulled down, as the sand slowly makes its way over your body, up over your hips and your torso, making its way up over your shoulders and your neck, and up over your head. Continue to breathe. You're safe. This space, so held by the earth, so loved, so warm. Nothing about it should feel scary. In fact, feel yourself moving down even more, as if you're making your way down through layers of sand and dirt, rock, breathing your way down further and further until you start to feel your feet exiting out of this layer, as if you're coming out the other side of something. Feel it moving over your knees and your hips, up over your womb and your torso, up over your chest and your shoulders and your head. And when you make it through to the other side, you're going to be in a blank space. Nothing here, emptiness all around you. But this place, in all of its emptiness, is going to be a specific color. You might see what color it is physically with your eyes. You might just know in your soul what the color is. Whatever it is, make a mental note. And then turn around to notice a door right behind you. Pay attention to the door. What does this door look like? What material is it made out of? Is it wood, glass, brick, paper, sand, metal? Whatever the door looks like, or whatever it feels like it is to you, just notice with no judgment. And as you breathe, remembering to keep your body so calm here, because you are so safe and so held in this moment, I want you to very gently stretch out your hand and open the door. And as you pull that door open, you might get hit with a little bit of wind on the other side. As you've opened a portal to some moment that is very important for your soul to see. You might not see what's on the other side yet. And so I want you to step towards the door and cross through this portal onto the threshold of the other side. Feeling yourself making your way through. Once you're on the other side, you're going to be in a moment that your soul needs you to see from your past. It might be this lifetime. It might be another. But just take a moment to ground your energy by just feeling your feet on the ground wherever it is that you landed, in whatever time and whatever place. Roll your feet and notice what it feels like you're standing on. Maybe it's a floor. Maybe it's dirt. Maybe it's something separate like water. But as you feel what's under your feet, see if you can visualize it too. Can you see it in your mind's eye? Can you recall it? Can you let the memory come flooding back? Notice if it feels like there's anything on your feet. Does it feel like you're barefoot? Or if you have shoes on of some sort, maybe it's socks or something else entirely. Look down at your feet and see if you can see them. Noticing all the details, like how big or small your feet look. Then let your gaze move up just a little bit. Begin to see the surrounding area. Maybe just a couple feet in front of you. Notice if there's anything that you can see, or if there's anything that you know is there. What is it that you're taking in here? Ask yourself in your mind, is this a place that you remember? And let all the details fall into place as you begin to see the outline of this place, of where it is that you've landed. Let it all come in, vibrant. Continue to breathe, remembering that your breath is medicine, in through the nose and out through the mouth, as you continue to keep your body so calm, because you are safe. You're grounded, and your soul is just here to learn. like an observer, peeking in on something. As you breathe in this moment, as you fully connect in here, begin to allow yourself to move to what it is that you need to see. The reason your soul traveled to this moment in time. Let yourself move one foot in front of the other, like gravity pulling you towards whatever it is that you need to see. Notice all the details as you make your way to that place and that moment in time. Maybe looking down at the clothing that you're wearing, noticing if there's anything about it that stands out, anything that's important here for you to pay attention to. Remember to keep that breath. Remembering that you are safe every step of the way. Until finally you reach the moment that you need to see. The exact moment that you stumbled upon on purpose here. The moment that something happens that's gotten trapped within your unconscious. And what I want you to do now is just bear witness. No judgment, no shame, just noticing everything, but feeling it fully. Letting the emotions come, not trying to repress anything. Letting the information come, letting it fully resonate within your mind. Taking every piece of this in and breathing slowly as you do. In and out. In through the nose and out through the mouth. As you witness this, maybe asking yourself the question of why this moment? Why are you here to see this? And when you ask yourself that, see what you hear in your mind or what you just know. Allow yourself to ask the question of where this unconscious moment is trapped within your physical body. Where does this moment live? Take a deep breath and feel into it. It might be a dull pain in your back, a throbbing in your ankle or your knee, ringing in your ears, fogginess in your head. Wherever and whatever it is that you experience, just observe, no judgment. It's just information for you. Let it come. And now as you breathe those big breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I need to know about this moment? Why is this moment important? Maybe it's the way this impacts you in your present day. Maybe this was the beginning of a different path for you, one that's less aligned. Let that answer come right up as a true inner knowing washes over you. I want you to look down at your body and see the location where this physical reaction is being held, where the trauma is being stored in your body. And notice that there's a big cord extending out of that location on your body. Notice what the cord looks like. If it's thick or thin. Notice what color this cord is. Notice its elasticity and the material that it's made out of. This cord is the energetic drain that is keeping this moment in time attached to you, draining your energy, keeping you stuck, keeping you here in so many ways. It's up to you to change that today. You don't have to keep this here anymore. It no longer needs to be a part of you if you're willing to part with it. And so what I want you to do is I want you to imagine yourself placing your hands around the base of the cord at the location it connects to your body. As you do that, you can either physically place your hands over that location or just imagine it in your mind's eye. And before we do anything to that cord, I want you to tell yourself why it no longer needs to be attached. What is it that you know to be true about why this does not need to drain your energy ever again? Breathe. As you tell yourself this new truth, this thing that your soul has needed you to hear. Maybe even repeating it, saying it 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. However many times you need this information to land within your body, but saying it with conviction. I want you to imagine those hands around the base of this cord. And we're going to take a huge breath in for a count of 3, and then hold it at the top. And when you exhale, you are going to rip that cord out of your body. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. And imagine all the strength that you can muster coming out of your heart down your arms, and pull out as you exhale. See that cord shriveling up and turning to dust. The dark energy that it was holding within you, spouting out in every direction, but floating away from you, no longer able to attach to you. As you take both of your hands and place them over that location, over the wound that was left behind by that cord. As you place them there, breathing in through the nose and seeing all the loving energy from your heart glowing bright green as it glows down your arms into your palms and to close the wound into your body, sealing off this location so that the trauma no longer lives there and never can ever again. Breathe that loving energy from your heart at least 3 times. Deep breaths in through the nose as you see that ball of green light glowing so bright. Exhaling it down your arms into your hands, sealing off the wound fully. Releasing every piece of this so that it never can be a part of you again. One more deep breath. as you let that loving energy make its way down to heal you completely, sealing off the final bits of it. As the scene around you, the place that you landed in, fades and you're back in that nothingness of a single color, back in that space, feeling calm, peaceful, free. Whatever color space it is that you're in right now, that's a chakra that's been blocked because of this trauma that's lived within your body. So the color of that space is important. Notice it like you did before. And then very gently, like a string is pulling you up out of the space, feel yourself floating up, getting pulled back up through the sand. Head first, neck, shoulders, torso, knees, legs, and feet. Moving up further and further. And when you emerge at the top of the sand, you find yourself not back on that beach, but back in your physical body. Breathing in as you connect back here. Letting yourself roll your shoulders, stretch. Maybe lifting your arms up towards the sky. Just breathing it all back here. Finding your way back home as your soul fully connects back into this physical vessel. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Now, for all the women who've done Create Your Light Academy before, you know I'm going to tell you right now to journal. But for those of you guys who are new, if you can, write this down. Make sure you remember and write down what color that space was, the chakra that this trauma was stuck in. What was it that you saw? Like, what was the scene, if you could kind of abbreviate it out? And then where was the cord stuck to your body? Just take a minute and write those things down. And when you're done, you can share in the chat box. You can let me know if there's something that you saw that was really profound, even if it's something small, like the color of the chakra. Share as much as you want or nothing at all. These sessions are for you. So use that however you will. For anybody watching the recording, all the same instructions. Make sure that you write this stuff down. And what I will say as you guys do that is that every time you do shadow work, it's cumulative. So things will keep building on each other. Moments will keep shaping themselves. Traumas will emerge slowly. As you start to open up that junk closet, things will start to spill out, but they'll do it slowly if you're careful. So we want to keep note of the things that you see, because the next time you do shadow work, you could do this meditation again, this exact meditation. Every time you do something like this, you're going to get more to the story. More things are going to come through. So Kay said, I had a hard time. I only saw a dark forest with a wolf in front of me growling, but couldn't get any further. Kay, if you don't mind me asking, did you see the beach before that? And it was when you actually got to the moment that you had to see? Okay. So what I'm getting is that dark forest with the wolf in front of you was a past life. And the reason why you're not seeing more than that is because you died. It might have been that the wolf killed you. I mean, that seems likely based on what we're seeing, but it might not have been. When there's a death, that usually is something that's a little bit heavier for a lot of reasons. And so your soul might have stopped you because this is a group session where it's like, you need to see this because this is extremely important for you, but not in this venue, not in like a one-off masterclass kind of way. If you were to go in and do this deeper, either working one-to-one with someone or doing something like Create Your Light, we can really let it unfold and see every piece of it because it is stuck within your body and we want to get it out. We don't want something like that to be stuck there. How it might be unfolding in your everyday life is around fears, like certain things that you're afraid of, because typically when we have a death and it's something that's sudden and unexpected, fear comes into play. So that fear gets trapped and it stops you from doing things. Maybe you take less risky behaviors, things along those lines. So I'll be interested to see how that goes on further. Rachel said, I was at a stony beach, loud water cabin in the distance, a baby, and dark fear inside of me. Oof, that can be chills. Tell me more about the baby. Like, what was the deal with the baby? Was it your baby? Was it someone else's? Was the baby just there? All the details. But that's interesting. Stony Beach. There's a couple places that pop into mind of where that could be. The other thing to notice from wherever it was that you guys saw is if you guys are dropping into past lives, which it looks like a couple of you guys are dropping into past lives, which is awesome because that is my favorite. When you drop into past lives, noticing the details is incredibly important. Noticing the way the place looks, because the locations change over time. Like if you were to go to, say, Long Island in the 1800s, it would look very different than Long Island in 1942. So all those different pieces are important. Rachel said it was mine, but my friend took it and she was scared of me. She thought it was her baby. Oh, that's interesting. This actually brings me to a session that I have with a Create Your Light Academy student, this most recent round that I just did, because she had a situation like that where she saw this past life where there was an issue with the baby, and the woman that she was with, the friend, actually was like possessed, believe it or not. And that caused obviously a whole slew of issues ending with the baby's death. So that is a heavy thing to hold. That was, yeah, it was. So, okay. So wait, if you know who it was, it might have been the two of you. I have so many goosebumps. Okay, so that is something you need to explore for sure. I know, seriously, I have like the most insane goosebumps. The most insane goosebumps. When something like that happens, our souls repeat, where it's like you come back together to redo it. So in that lifetime with her, the whole issue around that, if you're the friend, and I can speak just based on what I saw from hers, if you're the friend in that scenario, what she and I did was work to make sure that the energy that was possessing you in this case was disconnected. And what that was an entity, which is what Kristen talked about on day one. So now that you know this, you could go back and do the day one meditation from Kristen and specifically ask to get rid of this entity that was there. And when you pull that off and it's no longer attached to you, then it's done. Ooh, the most intense chills. And please feel free to message me about it. Holding safe space for you is so important. Okay, Larissa said, I don't know if I was on this planet. I think it was underground. That happens all the time, especially with past life work. When you think about it, our souls have lived a ridiculous number of times. When I do past life work with people, we could go anywhere from like 1900s to like times before this planet even existed, because our souls just keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back. And the reason why I think we do that, and this is my hypothesis, this is not from any articles or anything, so take it with a grain of salt, but my hypothesis is that we are like the universe experiencing itself in different ways. So it's like every time we show up, it's like, well, what would it be like if we changed this piece? So like maybe this lifetime, I was a bad person and I was the one who was punishing other people and making people into victims, which is the soul contract I had before I came here. So maybe the next lifetime I show up as the hero, the person who saves the victims in that same circumstance. And maybe the lifetime after that, I come back as one of the victims. Our souls do this constantly, where they want to just learn themselves inside and out. So we have lifetimes over and over that keep changing. So if we're talking about an off-planet experience, Larissa, and it was from another planet, give me as many details as you can. Obviously, I love details on this stuff, but there's a reason why you're seeing that one, because most off-planet stuff that I've seen isn't unconscious in a negative way, unless it was like the end of that planet and something traumatic happening around that, because Earth itself is a planet of intense karma, whereas most planets are not. Most planets are like a planet of just like learning to collaborate and everybody's doing stuff together, like Lyra, where it's like everybody's together and doing things really beautifully. So I want to know what you saw. Teresa said, when I opened the door, I went to this place that looked like Candyland, and under my feet, it was fluffy like marshmallows. And oops. And the color coming from the door in space was green. At the time, I was feeling the ground. I heard bells outside, actual bells from the mission near us. And I was immediately transported to Notre Dame in the 1400s and was being whipped in the stocks. Ooh, that's crazy. You guys all did past life stuff today. That's wild. Okay, yeah. So first off, when we go into a place that's really like magical looking, that's still usually us being transported through the unconscious until we get there, which is really cool. It was like you were so grounded and so connected to that. But being transported to Notre Dame to this really traumatic experience, like being whipped in the stocks, that's not a fun time. And oftentimes, if that far back, 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, people would die from whippings because they didn't have the treatment they needed. Skin getting infected, not being able to care for themselves, not having the money to treat wounds. So there could be more to that story, things that could be pulled off for sure. So keep me posted on that. Rachel said, I feel it's still on me. Probably. So based on what you saw, and I don't know if you saw day one live. I'm looking at you right now, so you can give me a yes or no if you saw it or you didn't. Okay, day one's going to be awesome for you with Kristen because she talked about entities. For anybody who didn't get to see day one, entities are spirits. I don't think any spirit is all good or all bad, but there are some that lean in the direction of being a little on the gnarly side. And so sometimes we have entities that want to teach us things, which Kristen talks about at length. Sometimes it's that they want to bring more darkness in. The reason for that is because there's always a struggle between light and dark that happens in the universe on a universal scale, light and dark. So when our planet is pulled in one direction and darkness takes hold, we tend to have more of those dark spirits kind of moving things and altering stuff up and changing things. If you feel like it's still on you, like you didn't get it off, Kristen's meditation is going to help because it's going to help you figure out exactly what it is and why it's there. But deeper shadow work is how you're going to get it off for good. So either create your Light Academy, my group program, or one-to-one work with somebody to just fully make sure that it's gone. But based on all the other stuff that you've said today, if we have an entity that's stuck to you, lots of dissociation, trauma that gets you here, like all these different pieces are like shadow work is screaming at you, which is probably why you're here today. Let's see. Andrea said, I was a little girl with a blue dress that was dirty, white ruffle socks and red shoes, blue and white house at the porch with like wheatgrass all around. I saw a father pacing on the porch. Then I was inside in the basement, scared. I locked in and scared. Honestly felt like I got locked into a chest, like my brother or a boy was down there too. I saw red and black mixed in that first space, and it was attached to my root womb. And also later I felt it in my shoulder and neck. And it's interesting how that kind of stuff comes in because it looked so peaceful at first, right? Like just all that beautiful imagery, and then it cuts to something really horrific, which makes me feel like it wasn't necessarily like someone who you expected to do that to you. Like it was someone who it just wasn't the way that it was supposed to go down. Maybe the father that was pacing on the porch, didn't he feel good or bad or pretty neutral? You can give me like one of these, kind of neutral, right? It doesn't necessarily feel like it's him, but maybe he was someone who couldn't protect you when that happened. Like he was kind of pushed out of the way, so that would happen. So something like that, obviously the root chakra makes a lot of sense because it's like feeling unsafe, feeling like you can't trust things, all that stuff. So that safety and feeling like you can do things and like you're not going to get hurt in that process is so important. Larissa said, I was in an underground tunnel with a skylight, so there was just a beam of light. Everything else around me was dark, but I could see a stone hut. Inside there was a simple bed and a little fire pit. There were bones hanging from the ceiling, and there was this red skinny alien looking thing following me and trying to hug me, but it couldn't. Larissa, if you could in the chat, let me know if you felt good or bad about it. The reason being is because I'm not necessarily getting a bad feeling about it, even though all the stuff that you're talking about sounds like the beginning of a horror movie. But it maybe was something else entirely. Like maybe that alien was someone who was connecting with you from off planet in a past life that you were on this planet, if that makes sense. That's something interesting. Let's see. Yeah, let me know. I was laying down and falling asleep. This is Maryland, but woke up when I was getting out of the sand. I was wondering if it worked. Did my soul do that on purpose? This is actually a common reaction for anybody who has a lot of trauma, where if you have a ton of trauma, your body will do something where it like flips a switch and puts you to sleep, because that's a coping mechanism. Like if we can make you fall asleep, then we don't have to deal with the trauma. So what I would say to this is do this one again, but do it sitting up and actually try to make yourself a little bit less comfortable. Like if you did a blanket last time, like skip the blanket, all that stuff. And what you're doing then is you're making it just a little bit harder for your body to slip right into that falling asleep state, right out of theta. But I will say that sometimes when we do this work, even if you don't remember it, we could still be doing some things. But I just feel like it's much more powerful when you have that cognitive awareness of what it is that's happened, when you understand how we tweaked and moved things, because then it causes that ripple effect of like, if I know this now and I changed how it feels, here's all the stuff we can do different. Okay. And then Larissa said it was kind of neutral. And I got the feeling of sickness or plague. I kind of wonder if in that past life that you had, it was like you there and everything that you were experiencing was like you were connecting with ancestors, connecting with starseed ancestors to do this healing work. And even though the place looked creepy, like there's bones hanging and stuff like that, maybe you were more of a shaman in this time, like maybe during something like the Black Plague or the bubonic plague, where you were helping people and calling upon these ancestors to do it, which to me just means that this is something that you're meant to do. Like your soul's been doing healing work for lifetimes. And that's a moment that you need to remember so you can start to wake up and do it here, which is cool. All right, well, it's 3:30 now, so I'm going to call it at this point. Thank you guys all so much for coming on and doing this with me. For anybody who's watching the replay, you guys can post in the comments or message me directly about the things that you saw during your meditations. And remember that shadow work is not a one-time thing. It's a practice. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, the stronger it's going to take hold over you and heal you completely from the inside out. So again, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure getting to know all of you, and for all my shadow seekers who came on, I love you guys. I'm so happy I got to see your faces, and I will talk to you all very soon. Create Your Light Academy is open for enrollment for anybody who's interested in doing some more shadow work. The program is an 8-week intensive where we go in and we clear out lifetimes worth of heaviness. Anything that is stuck and stagnant within your body, we clear it completely from every chakra, from every physical part of your body, and change your life as you're living it now. So thank you all. I love you guys so much. Oh, I wanted to announce that anybody who signs up for a call with me today to learn about Create Your Light Academy and then ends up signing up by Monday is going to get a discount. So just take that and do with it what you will. Love you guys. Bye, everybody.